everybody. Today I am talking about my 5 top reasons why you should try HIIT Pilates, why I love it. Full disclaimer, I am an instructor for HIIT Pilates, but it's not like if you go to any class, I make more money. So I don't have a lot to gain out of this. This is really for you. I promise you, it's kind of magical. Okay, let's talk about what it is. Hot. You do it in the heat. You do it in a room heated to 36 degrees Celsius or higher and with high humidity. HIIT. HIIT stands for high intensity interval training, where you switch between high intensity vigorous work with short rest periods. And Pilates. Pilates is based on controlled movement stemming from core strength. You're really moving with core strength in mind, and there is an element of graceful movement that is often associated with Pilates. Okay, with that aside, this combination of unique modalities can have an incredible impact on your health. I'm going to talk about how in my 5 reasons. Okay, here we go. Reason number 1, the heat, the hot in HIIT Pilates. There have been many studies to show those that regularly use saunas and or hot baths and hot tubs now have a lower risk of getting cardiovascular disease, a significantly lower risk of getting Alzheimer's or a neurodegenerative disease, and a reduced risk of all causes of mortality. Why is that? There might be multiple things at work here, but one important factor is something called heat shock proteins. Okay, when you burn yourself on something, you are literally melting and denaturing the machinery in your cells and your tissues. And your body has a rapid response process. What it does is it activates heat shock protein genes, a whole bunch of genes in your cells that literally scour your cells looking for damaged, melted, denatured, suboptimal stuff, machinery, breaks it down, builds it up nice and new and optimal again. Now, you don't have to go and burn your hand for this to happen. It just so happens that going into a heated environment also activates these heat shock proteins. It's kind of like by going into a heated environment, you are releasing a personal trainer into each one of your cells that is looking for the lazy or suboptimal things that are working in your cells, kicks their butts into shape, and all of them are ripped and working optimally. That is basically how heat shock proteins work, and probably why they have such an enormous impact, especially on our brains and reducing the risk of Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative diseases. Okay, so heat. Reason number 2, vigorous exercise has been shown to reverse the aging of our brains and our hearts. Not only reduce the risk of stuff, literally reverse the aging of our hearts and our brains. There was one study that took 50-year-olds and put them on a vigorous exercise protocol for 2 years where they were working out 3 times a week. At the end of those 2 years, the researchers compared these people's hearts to what they were like when they started. What they saw was that these individuals had reversed the aging of their heart by 20 years based on things like the structure of the heart and the stiffness of their heart. So their hearts were like they were when they were in their 30s. They erased 20 years. That's mind-blowing with 2 years of effort. Also, we know with our brains, after the age of 60, they shrink 1 to 2% a year, especially in the area important for memory formation and for learning. There was a study that took participants, put them on a vigorous exercise protocol, and after 1 year, they were able to see that these people doing that vigorous exercise increase the size of their brains by 1 to 2%. So not only did their brains not shrink, not only did their brains just not grow, they grew 1 to 2% with vigorous exercise. There are probably so many mechanisms as to how this happens, but one, when you do vigorous exercise, you produce lactate only when you're doing like really vigorous exercise. Lactate used to be thought of like a waste product, but it has been shown to be very powerful. It goes to our brain. It activates the production of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and increases or induces neurogenesis, the formation of new neurons, as well as more connections. And this can help explain how you can grow your brain 1 to 2% with vigorous exercise. Reason number 3, vigorous exercise can help prevent the spread, occurrence, or recurrence of cancer. Yes, you heard me right, cancer. How could this be? When you are doing highly vigorous exercise, your blood is moving fast and it is hitting your blood vessels with very high shear forces. But your blood has evolved and adapted to be able to do this. Now, God forbid, if you have any precancerous cells or cancerous cells floating around in your blood, these are mutated cells and they've not evolved to withstand these same forces. So when you do vigorous exercise, it's important. When you're doing that exercise, they preferentially die, they being the cancer or precancerous cells, while your blood is left healthy and alone, obviously. This has been shown in animal models to be true. In humans, we know that those that do especially high intensity or vigorous exercise have lower occurrence of cancer. Their cancers are usually found in earlier stages, and they have a decreased risk of recurrence of cancer. Reason number 4, your brain releases a whole bunch of neurotransmitters in your brain when you do vigorous exercise. You may have felt leaving some type of exercise class just feeling like really amazing and fresh and focused. And there is a reason for that. When we do vigorous exercise, the actual exercise itself, the increase in our heart rate, tells our body and our minds something is happening right now and I need to be prepared. So your brain releases a whole bunch of stuff in preparation for that vigorous activity you're about to embark on and during it. It releases dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, and endorphins. Okay, serotonin gives you the feeling of contentment or just being happy with the way things are. Norepinephrine helps you feel really focused in on something. Dopamine helps you feel motivated to go, to do, to move forward. And endorphins help to suppress your pain receptors and thereby give you this feeling of euphoria. So if you've ever heard of runner's high, that comes from the endorphins. So this cocktail is released in your brain when you do vigorous exercise. So you feel incredible. And obviously it has amazing impact on your productivity, on your mood. Those that do exercise, less likely to get depression, etc., etc. So amazing. Such a fun cocktail for the brain. And reason number 5, last reason, is for community and accountability. Okay, one of the longest studies I ever heard of, especially on happiness and health, was done in hundreds of men where they were followed and then their families were followed for 85 plus years. And what they found was those with strong social connections lived longer, reported being happier, and had less chronic diseases. In fact, if we looked at loneliness, loneliness was as harmful as smoking and alcohol when it came to long-term health outcomes. So in a HIIT Pilates class where they have all of these awesome neurotransmitters floating around, they're happy, they're motivated, these people in this class will become your community. They will motivate you. They will cheer you on. They will help you get through the tough times. And you will do the same for them. And a really magical thing happens when any group of people goes through something really difficult, but goes through it together. They become stronger and more connected on the other side. And that definitely happens in a HIIT Pilates class as well. So, for all of those magical but scientifically backed reasons, because you know me, I'm a science girl, you should definitely try a HIIT Pilates class, especially if you've been thinking about it, especially if people have been talking to you about it, especially if you're hesitant because you don't like heat. Trust me, it is magical. Okay, well, thank you for listening, and I hope to see you guys next time. Let me do the little plug in here. Okay, so if you have any questions, if you like the information you heard here, if you want to tell me something that maybe I have missed, a reason that should be in my top 5, please put it in the comments. If you like the information you heard here, please give it a like. If you like the way that I explain stuff and just want to see some more on my face, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Oh, and share. That helps too. My God, you guys have a lot of stuff to do, so I'm not going to keep you from it. Thanks. Bye.